Welcome to Success Story, the most useful podcast in the world. I'm your host, Scott D. Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. The HubSpot Podcast Network is the audio destination for business professionals who seek the best education and inspiration on how to start and grow a business. HubSpot Podcast Network hosts act as on-demand mentors to entrepreneurs, startups, and scale-ups through practical tips and inspirational stories. Listen, learn, and grow with the HubSpot Podcast Network at HubSpot.com/podcast network. Today, my guest is Bob Richards. Bob is the Executive Vice Chairman at Cushman Wakefield, and he is also a member of the Cushman Wakefield Global Advisory Board. He is in the upper echelons of commercial real estate. Bob leads the Cambridge Urban Team and also heads up the Life Science and Healthcare Practices Group. He serves on the Boston Office Steering Committee. He has represented numerous corporate clients in transactions nationally and internationally. He has negotiated and closed some of the largest commercial real estate transactions in the world. He has successfully completed complex assignments in India, China, Singapore, Australia, the UK, Netherlands, Denmark, as well as in all major cities in the United States. He counsels tenants and clients such as Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Harvard Medical School, Bristol-Myers Squibb, Raytheon, Forrester Research, CRISPR Therapeutics, Acceleron, and the Wyss Institute. Prior to joining Cushman Wakefield, Bob was a founding partner and president of Richards Barry Joyce Partners, which was acquired by Transwestern in 2013. Prior to co-founding RBJ, he was principal at Trammell Crow Company, and before entering commercial real estate, he spent a significant portion of his career as a sportscaster at CNN and WTBS in Atlanta. So, Bob has had an incredible career. He is crushing it in terms of corporate real estate. Obviously, real estate in general, where we're working, are we going into office? That has somewhat changed over the past 2 years, so I'm going to obviously pick his brain on that. But we dive into his origin story. We speak about how he made a huge major career pivot from broadcasting into real estate, how he went from working for somebody to starting his own firm to successfully exiting his firm to working for somebody again at Cushman Wakefield and obviously reaching the upper echelons of commercial real estate. So we speak about some real estate topics and things that hopefully will provide some value to business leaders trying to understand the dynamics of the office environment in 2021 and beyond. And then we also just speak through some incredible stories and some insights that he has from his career across multiple industries, building his own company, just killing it at Cushman Wakefield. And now, of course, he is one of the names at Cushman Wakefield and manages billions of dollars in real estate transactions. So let's jump right into it. This is Bob Richards, Executive Vice Chairman at Cushman Wakefield. Walk me through your origin story. Like you can kick it off right now. We can go right into it.
Sure, great. Yeah, well, I grew up outside of Boston in a little town, Norwood, Massachusetts. My father was a public school teacher, and my mother was a homemaker. Oldest brother, 3 younger sisters. I played a lot of sports growing up. Fortunately, had some success in hockey. And that helped me get into a good prep school and then helped me get into Dartmouth College, which, made a really big difference in my life. So I'm very, very blessed with those opportunities. After that, I always had an interest in broadcasting. So I started my senior year, an NBC television station opened up in White River Junction. So I was hired as a sports reporter there, as opposed to doing the college radio station gig, and had some great exposure there. And then after that, I moved out to upstate New York to Binghamton, where I was hired as a sportscaster and also weatherman, which was a little bit of a not expected, but in retrospect was great training for me over time in terms of sales presentations. And from there, I moved down to CNN Sports in Atlanta, worked there for 5 years as an on-air sportscaster. Had a lot of fun, great national exposure, worked really hard. They brought in a lot of young people and gave them great opportunity. We didn't make much money, but we had great opportunity. And, at that point in time, had 2 kids and, just thought that broadcasting career of living on 2 and 3 year contracts and having to go to any part of the country that was sort of interested in you, was not a way to make a good family life. So ended up looking around and networking and kind of doing the Jerry Maguire sports agent thing, made the most sense. And I interviewed with some of them, but one of my good friends growing up that I played a lot of sports with's wife worked at a real estate company in Boston, and her boss happened to be a Dartmouth grad and brought me in and gave me an opportunity to begin work as a real estate broker, and started in this industry at 30 years old. So coming out of the block, Scott, I kind of felt like I was 5 years behind everyone else, and had some pretty funny stories. Like early on, I can remember going into my boss and they had me reading a bunch of leases, and I was saying, I have to find out who the CFO of a Delaware corporation is, because these guys seem to be involved in every company I'm looking at. And Matt was like, "Oh my God, I like your instincts, but please go back to your desk." So, so a lot of mistakes along the way. But after a couple of years there, I was, a top performer. I went to a boutique firm, Fallon, Hines and O'Connor, where I got an opportunity to run the Cambridge, Massachusetts market, which has been very influential in the life science world and just technology in general. And I was there for about 13 years, and then decided, I think there's a better way to do this business. So several of my buddies and partners, we started our own boutique firm, Richards Barry Joyce Partners, and we ran that for 13 years and sold it to Transwestern. And then after 3 years, made the transition to Cushman Wakefield, where I've been for 2.5 years right now.
Amazing. And it's a lot of risk, a lot of pivots. So walk me through your mindset when you, at 30 years old, did you have a spouse? You didn't have kids yet, I'm assuming. Did you have kids?
Oh yeah.
Was there a risk there?
Yep, married. 2 kids at the time when we left Atlanta, including a newborn. And since then, we've had Jake, our youngest, who's now 24 years old. So the mindset was, once again, as my background. I mean, my last year at CNN, I was doing my on-air work. I was doing play-by-play radio on Friday nights for high school football. I was doing the Braves post-game show on TBS, and I was on Sunday nights being a cameraman for pro wrestling. And so doing whatever it needed to do, and I think my last year there I made like $50,000. So we didn't have much savings, and so my mindset, Scott, was frankly, like, I don't care how thick the brick wall is, but I got to go through the brick wall. So if it's 6 inches thick, I'm going through it. If it's 6 feet thick, I'm going through it, because I sort of felt at that time I had spent a bunch of time in another career that wasn't going to have that much utility with the career I was going into, so I didn't have any time or effort to waste.
And day one in real estate, you're not making any money. Like, this wasn't a salaried position, right? You're just real estate.
Dialing for dollars.
Was it like?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it like? Did you start off like every other real estate agent? You're doing rentals and everything like that, and everything in between.
Yeah. So it was commercial, and but I just wasn't shy about getting on the phone and getting in front of people, and I think that real estate background and interviewing the, Muhammad Ali's and Dale Murphy's and Larry Bird's, I was not intimidated by talking to a CFO or a CEO, and it just made you comfortable. So I think that was, something that in retrospect, I hadn't wasted, those 8 years or whatever. It was actually, sort of good training. And, when you're a sportscaster and you're going live, you live and die on that 3 minutes a night, right? So there's no redos, there's no editing. So, that was my mindset going into it. But, it was certainly intimidating in some ways to be going into an industry that I literally knew nothing about. Nothing.
You drank from the fire hose for sure. I'm the first, the first little bit. All right, so you're growing your real estate career. You're just consuming as much knowledge, information as possible. Now the real I guess the real like hockey stick growth curve in your career would be when you started your own brokerage.
Yeah.
So what differentiated you that made you, because now look at where you're at. Like this is the epitome of real estate and commercial real estate. You're there now, but how'd you get there?
Correct. Yeah. So, when I talk to younger people, I think one important lesson is don't be afraid of moving on from success, right? Because think about it. I was 30 years old at the time. I'd only been in the business a year and a half, and I was fortunate to be, the top salesperson in that real estate company with probably, 40 brokers, a year and a half in. And so it was kind of like, why would you ever leave this company to go to this fledgling boutique, Fallon, Hines and O'Connor? But I just knew in my gut that I was going to have more opportunity and a wider runway than after being with that organization and having a great run. I think one of the things that really fueled my desire there was leadership and having a chance to lead an organization. It wasn't as rewarding to just do another deal or a bigger deal, but it was a chance to kind of help young people. And, we ended up, starting the company, in July, whatever that was, 3 months before 9/11. So talk about terrible timing. We went from, at that point, it was big organizations, but we just thought there was a better way to have a smaller boutique company. And one of the really interesting things we did was we went, as opposed to straight commission, we went on a salary bonus program. So as opposed to everybody eating what they killed, whatever everybody earned, we brought in and twice a year sat down, subjectively bonused the non-partners, and split amongst the partners equally what was remaining. So the teamwork and the knowledge sharing and the support that we developed there really differentiated ourselves. And then, after the horrible 9/11 and the economy in a tailspin, when people were, thinking about trying to get rid and market their excess property, they said, we can go with the normal folks, or we've got this young, aggressive, energized group. And they were like, listen, we can take some chances because we got to get rid of this space. If the world had been smooth, I think we would have had a really much harder time, getting going. But the fact that the economy was in a bad place, and ordinarily you could kind of have your head down and say, oh, geez, no one can make it work in this environment. It was the total opposite for us.
That's amazing. You were 100% like you. It was funny. It's funny because it was a poor economy. For most people looking outside in, it's the worst possible conditions you could possibly ever expect.
Right.
But that's opportunity,
yeah.
And not in a malicious way. It's opportunity in like you're gonna work hard. You're gonna hustle. You're gonna differentiate. You're gonna take advantage of the fact that no one else can get this done, and you're gonna have a team and a culture that supports this kind of mindset. How did you find people that were right for this to bring into your firm?
It was really hard, and it was really happenstance. I mean, frankly, so it's Richards Barry Joyce. I mean, John Barry, I had done some work with, and Mike Joyce. We were playing in a pickup hockey league, and I remember just saying, who's that number 11? And it's like, oh, Mike Joyce, and you could just see the way that he competed on the ice. And then, we filled in other like-minded people within other geographies to cover. But we just had that mindset. And, once again, by doing the compensation the way we did, it just fostered this sort of brotherhood of commitment. And it paid great dividends.
I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, Ladder. Now, Ladder allows you to get access to life insurance, but I want to just give some context. So I was excited when Ladder reached out. I'm a big advocate of life insurance. Of course, a lot of us over the past 2 years have lost loved ones, but for me, it actually came back to before COVID. Fortunately, I actually haven't lost anybody, but I have lost people far before their time previous to COVID. And it just so happens that when a younger family or a younger person loses their life, God forbid, way before they should, they haven't thought of life insurance yet. Younger families in general don't look into life insurance to the same extent as perhaps somebody with adult children or even grandchildren look into life insurance. So you end up having, if something happens, these costs and these financial burdens that are passed on to their family. And it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of things that somebody who just lost somebody who they loved shouldn't have to think about. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of life insurance. Now, Ladder makes it extremely easy, which is why I was excited to partner up with them. Ladder is 100% digital, no doctors, no needles, no paperwork, all the things that stress you out about figuring out life insurance. Ladders remove that friction. So you just need a phone or a laptop to apply, and there's an algorithm that will validate and confirm your coverage for up to $3 million in under 30 seconds. It's all digital, all self-serve. You can, of course, call them and speak to somebody if you want to speak to somebody, but you don't have to, which means that the barrier to getting life insurance, getting a policy, getting a quote is next to nothing. The quotes are set for life. So if you lock in a quote, especially if you're younger and you're healthier, you can carry that quote on for as long as you'd like. There's no contract, so if you want, you can cancel that quote whenever you want, no obligation. The price they quote you is the price you're paying. There's no fees, there's nothing added on. So of course, life insurance is good to give you peace of mind if something does happen, but also they've removed any stress in at least starting to think about it. So what I would recommend is if you do not have life insurance, or even if you do have life insurance, because there's no effort to actually get a quote, go to the link that they set up for everybody who's a Success Story podcast listener and at least inquire. Start to look into the process because it can save your family an immense amount of stress. So the link that they set up for everybody who's a Success Story podcast listener is ladderlife.com/success story. That's ladderlife, LADDERLIFE.com/success, SUCCESS story, STORY. So go there, get a quote in under 30 seconds. You'll get up to $3 million in coverage, and then you can start to investigate and hopefully get life insurance so that you and your family will be taken care of. All right, let's get back to the show. And I was going to say, you mentioned like brotherhood and this culture, and you did it by changing the way that people are comped, and compensation drives behavior. And traditionally in like hard sell industries where it's like pure commission, eat what you kill, like that's a very competitive, not brotherhood, brotherly, culture driven organization. Right. Nobody's supporting each other.
Correct.
And that's probably a differentiator too.
Yeah, and sisterhood. I mean, I'm amazed that. Yeah. Here it is. So, we sold in like 2017, I want to say, but I'm sort of surprised that there haven't been other companies like that have popped up, But when you get into these sales organizations and it's this kind of, pyramid scheme of the senior broker taking, big pieces of every deal and spreading it around, as they see fit. I'm sort of amazed that I think it's really hard when you're at the top of the pyramid to say, there's another way to do this, right? So I think that's what's kept people, because once again, every person when we started Richards Barry Joyce was very successful in a mostly commissioned environment. Fahrenheit and O'Connor, where I'd been, had a similar system, but it was sort of modifying over time. But I think sales organizations, especially smaller ones, can look at that. I mean, you can't replicate that as you get to be a 100-person group, 1,000-person group. It's too hard to divvy up the pie. But for smaller boutiques, I think you want a commonality of purpose and a commitment and a spirit. How you divvy up the pie can, as you say, drive some behaviors.
Yeah, no, it's very impressive. Now, so you built this up, you sold it, you decided to jump right back in. Walk me through that mindset. Why did you want to make the move to Cushman and Wakefield? What was the play there?
Well, I mean, I had never worked, so really every organization I had been in, we had to kind of figure out every resource that we had ourselves. And I had never had an opportunity to work with an organization that had deep resources and, a real international focus. So, I talked to, 7 or 8 firms when I decided to leave, including staying with my former partners at another big organization, CBRE, that's a great organization. And I was fortunate to get, a bunch of offers. But to me, at this point in time, my focus was I wanted to have fun. I wanted to really enjoy the people I was working with. And I wanted to have, an opportunity to sort of help mentor other people and put myself in a position that we could win any piece of business, right? I mean, that's to compete at the highest level. So it wasn't about, who gave you the biggest signing bonus. I mean, frankly, I left a lot of money on the table coming to Cushman, but, at some point in time, really, it's not, the compensation is not your only reward in a career, after you've had some level of success.
So you've joined Cushman, and for people that don't know what you're doing at Cushman, but also what Cushman Wakefield does, maybe just give a brief rundown of what their purpose and their vision is.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Cushman and Wakefield, it's a large organization, international organization, 50,000 people across the world, 140 offices. Great client. Great clients. Represent tenants, represent landlords, sell properties, manage properties. It's a very, very substantive company, competes with the CBREs and the Jones Lang LaSalles of the world.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So what are you working on? What are you working on at Cushman Wakefield now? Because you also work in a very interesting niche or niche for my American friends.
Yeah.
So what do you do at Cushman Wakefield?
Sure. Well, so I lead our Cambridge group and also lead our life science practice in Boston. So I think, as you're aware, right, the life science industry, thanks in part to MIT and Harvard, has had, explosive growth in the greater Cambridge market. So, we are very, humbled to work with groups such as, Pfizer, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Harvard Medical School, Bristol-Myers Squibb, CRISPR, some of the gene editing companies. So we're helping those organizations strategize on how to build their real estate portfolios, not only locally, but across the country and across the world. So it's a great opportunity, when you think about the mission of a Dana-Farber or what Pfizer and BMS are doing for people in the world. Our opportunity for our team to just help a little bit on that mission, is something that's really rewarding to our team.
Now, I am curious, what are some of the things that you've seen? Because we're all living virtual now. So that impacts real estate.
Yes.
That's impacted real estate in a big way. Walk me through some of the things that you've seen over the past year and a half when it comes to commercial real estate, what companies are doing, how is it impacting? I'm curious to see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think on the life science side, it has not been as dramatic an impact because, you can't work in a lab remotely, right? So the lab
Yeah, that's
people have
fair.
had to
Yeah.
be at work. But certainly on the office side, there has been significant impacts and a lot of space on the market. And I don't think anybody has quite figured it out yet. But, as you think about interesting issues that are going to come into play. I think a lot of people have gotten very comfortable working remotely. So I think as you think about attracting talent and retaining talent, especially younger folks, I think if there's a hybrid opportunity where they can work from home 2 or 3 days a week and be in the office, 2 or 3 days a week, that's probably going to give some organizations, an advantage. And really, the real estate business that we're in, we're really in the talent business. So it's really not about bricks and mortar. The CEOs and C-level folks are really focused on how can I use my real estate to attract the best and brightest people for my company. And some of this back to work and workplace strategy and hybrid scheduling, I think, is really going to play out, Scott, across all industries over the next few years. And there's not a one size fits all. It's going to be different company to company, industry to industry, age group, workforce. I think it's going to be really impactful and very interesting to watch.
I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, HubSpot. HubSpot's CRM is the easiest tool you can ever find to align your team. There are two features that you need in a CRM that optimize every activity your team does. It's the ability to communicate, meaning chat, email, etc., messaging, as well as a unified system of record. Your company is going to use a CRM to manage conversations with prospects and customers throughout all stages of the buyer journey. And as your company grows, these conversations get a little bit more difficult. Information may get lost, communication may be disjointed, and HubSpot solves all that. Using HubSpot as your CRM makes sure that all of your communication and your records are unified across your entire organization, meaning that from when you first have that initial touch point with the customer and they enter your funnel, all the way through to when they actually sign that contract, and after with customer success, every piece of information, every bit of communication is aligned and congruent across your company. You can install live chat on your website and allow sales or support to talk to prospects directly. You can send marketing emails on behalf of a sales rep to complement their outbound campaign. You can allow prospects to book meetings directly from marketing emails right into a sales rep's calendar. And all the interaction, all the communication is seamlessly documented into your HubSpot CRM so that if somebody else has to look into an account or to help out, they know exactly where the last person left off. Best of all, with HubSpot's various price points and flexible pricing, any company at any stage can take advantage of the various features that HubSpot has to offer, starting with free and allowing for more scalability and complexity as your organization grows. Learn how to scale your company without scaling complexity at HubSpot.com. All right, let's get back to the show. Has it impacted like financials? Has it impacted commercial property values? I only follow residentials, and I think that's what many people follow, but you're in it. So what has it done to commercial property?
We have not seen, life science rents have continued to escalate at very healthy 3 to 5% increases. The residential market in Greater Boston, with the workforce needs have continued to grow very dramatically. So, I think it really depends on where you are and where you live and what kind of job opportunities, because unfortunately, there's parts of the country where, the work opportunities are not there, and they're going to be harder and harder to come by. But, one interesting sort of trend that we talked about is, you think of somebody working for, a high-end conglomerate type of company, and you need to pay them what a working wage in a New York or a Boston or Chicago brings. If some percentage of those jobs do not have to be in office, and you can handle those remotely, and you can have people in more sort of rural parts of the country, and you can afford to pay somebody, whatever, 50% less to live in another locale, I think that's going to have an impact on organizations because, you don't have to pay top dollar if people aren't coming into the office anymore and can handle things remotely. So that's going to be a very interesting trend, I think, to follow.
Yeah, because now, if you think about that, now people who were working in New York in a pay band for New York, and they're making New York salaries, and they moved to nowhere. They moved to somewhere else, and their peer that was working in another city in another pay band, well, now there's no reason why they shouldn't be paid the exact same.
Yep.
That's an HR issue now.
Yep.
Now you got to figure out the ethics of what to pay people and that's a big deal.
Totally. I mean, you think here, and was just on with some folks yesterday, and it's like, people not wanting to live in Boston and enjoying the lifestyle in Maine, right? Well, you can live a lot more comfortably in Maine economically than you can in greater Boston. So, are there going to be jobs that move that way, or is this going to kind of advance that a little bit? Because once again, it's all about talent. You need the smart people, and if they want to, if they don't want to live where you want them to live, or to commute in, and you still want access to that intelligence, you're going to have to work with them in order to once again attract the best and the brightest, and it's so competitive. Now
because now you can work from anywhere. You can leave a job like that and work anywhere in the world, no problem.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
Do you see companies? Now I know. So this is life science. So I get it. Life science is probably not changing that much because you need to be in a lab for the foreseeable future doing things physically. But have you seen across Cushman Wakefield, have you seen companies migrating to more of a co-working environment? Have you seen, or just people are just trying to do like a hybrid model? Have you seen any of that?
Yeah. I mean, I would say everybody, for the most part, is at least going to a hybrid and a model, and that's getting into discussions with. If you used to have an office or a cubicle that was assigned to you, and you're only going to come in 3 days a week, do you still get your assigned desk or cubicle, or do you no longer qualify for that? If you're a 4-day-a-week person, you get an office. If you're a 3-day-a-week person, you don't, or 2 days, or so on and so forth. So it's happening real time across organizations right now. And as I said, it's not a one size fits all. It's different for every organization, and it's a major opportunity for Cushman and Wakefield to help organizations try to figure this out.
Yeah, I'm curious. You're the guy who champions and sells commercial real estate. Have you been more productive at home, or were you more productive in an office?
I mean, I never would have predicted how efficient I have been remotely. And even time to time, folks will say, "Oh, are you coming in tomorrow?" And it's like, literally, I cannot afford to come in tomorrow because I can't afford to be on the hour-and-a-half commute, or even, to have a lot of unexpected interactions, which are fun because, working remotely is certainly not fun, but it's extremely efficient. And even on the process itself, I mean, you think about when you were working with a company and showing them new sites or alternatives. Of course, you used to do that. You got in a car and you took 4 people and you looked at building A, building B, building C. Now, through this, the vast majority of some very large transactions have all been done remotely, where you just do back-to-back Microsoft Teams or Zoom presentations, and it's all a sort of virtual presentation on the property. here's the property, here's the site. And it's funny, one organization, a life science group, who has people from all over the country. So, we've had to do them in this virtual way, but they all happen to be in town. And so we did an actual tour a few weeks ago, and their response was, "Oh God, this is like so much worse. It's such a waste of time. We got to do these virtual. This getting in the car and fighting traffic is no way to do things." So it's very interesting to see how that'll evolve. But
and you've closed commercial transactions virtually in the past year and a half now?
Oh yeah, many. I mean, our team had a very strong year last year, and expect the same this year. So once again, I think a lot of that is being in Greater Boston and being a life science broker advisor. Is sort of like a good place to be, right? It's much harder for just strict office brokers. That it's a heck of a lot harder.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's very, very just so interesting how the world's changing, and you're kind of just living it every single day because you're working in the office space and the commercial real estate, and that's one major area that's been impacted. I actually have family that work for Morguard in the commercial retail, they're getting slaughtered. They're not having the same positive conversation that you are. They're putting on anchors on malls, and that was the job before. Now everything's revamped, so it's been a tough.
Yeah.
It's been a tough go.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so what I wanted to, so that was great. Now you took the you had the foresight to write down a couple points that I thought were interesting, that I wanted to just unpack, because they're really good career. They're not, obviously we're pivoting now from commercial real estate and COVID, but they're really good just career points, and I thought they were interesting to talk through because they're provocative a little bit, some of them. So one of the ones I thought was interesting is you only need to make 3 to 4 big career decisions. You mentioned moving on from near-term success, but why is that important for people that are earlier on in their career to understand what that means for them? I just want to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's episode, Quantum Metric. So what Quantum Metric is going to do is it's going to allow you to develop a single source of customer-centric truth that can help you understand how to position your products, how to sell to your customers, because anyone is a digital leader who wants to understand your customers better. It should be 100% of you. You should want to understand the customer experience when they hit your website. And then you also want to understand not just your customers, but who else in the world is having similar experiences, and how can you use that information to make informed decisions about how your business moves forward. We are gearing up for an unprecedented 2021 e-commerce season. E-commerce sales are expected to exceed 2020 benchmarks, even though COVID is lightening up. Consumer behavior has changed forever. And with Quantum Metric, you can prepare yourself to capture every single customer revenue opportunity. So their unique approach to the digital experience that the customer has while engaging with your brand helps top retailers, e-commerce outlets quickly identify and prioritize large and small revenue opportunities, and they keep customers coming back. So everything from page hits, mouse movements, scrolling, typing, out-of-the-box interactions that you couldn't even think of, various events, API calls, literally everything. They quantify that data and they present it to you so that you can use that data to make informed decisions about how customers interact with your brand online. So if you want to reduce customer friction, if you want to increase conversions, drive more revenue, optimize user experience, personalize the shopping experience for all of your customers, go visit quantummetric.com/pod offer. That's quantummetric.com/pod offer. And go see if you qualify for the 12 days of insights offer using the code SUCCESS. The 12 days of insight offer gives you 12 days of access to the Quantum Metric platform with a bespoke insight report that will help you identify where customers are struggling and engaging with your online experience and your digital product. Some restrictions apply, but for the majority of people, go to quantummetric.com/pod offer offer, enter the code SUCCESS, and you will be able to receive their 12 days of insights offer. Get ready to understand your customers with intimate detail that can optimize experience and revenue and give your customers an overall much more pleasant experience when they hit your site. All right, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think there's that many, there are that many, maybe even opportunities, but you don't have to make that many big decisions in your career. But one thing that I think really holds a lot of people back is being in a role that has kind of success at that moment, a near-term success, and not being able to kind of peek over the mountaintop to say, well, maybe on the other side, there's even more opportunity. Not like, there's no way I can ever leave this job, or this role because I'm so comfortable doing what I'm doing. And, that happened to me a few times, right? I mean, I transitioned from broadcasting to real estate. I'm doing really well at this well-established, old line firm. Why would you go to a fledgling startup? And then why would you leave that to start your own firm? And then why would you leave that to go to Cushman Wakefield? So I just don't see that many decisions that I've had to make, but I think a lot of times people get very comfortable and they're not willing to take that risk for more success because, not everybody is driven that way, I guess, either, right? So, some people can settle for less.
What about this one? Make a bet on yourself and take the chance to be a difference maker.
Yeah.
Walk me through that.
Totally. Well, I mean, I just think, as we said, we have an opportunity to work with some great organizations, which gives us kind of great reward. But, I think people, I think in our role, they're looking for advisors that can kind of help steer them into what, an educated person, experienced person thinks is going to happen, right? Because there's constant decisions. Should we sign a 3-year lease? Should we sign a 5-year lease? Is the market going to get worse? Is the market going to get better? And, especially in the real estate brokerage world, I always like to say, to clients when they're asking about their advisors, I'm like, when your real estate broker tells you not to do a deal, that's when you have an advisor and not a broker, right? I don't think we should go transact right now because I think it's going to be better in 3 years. You're not going to find a lot of salespeople that are going to say, I'm going to turn down today's commission because, hopefully I'll be working with this company in 3 years and we will transact. So, that's what I mean by making a bet on yourself. And it's once again, people that kind of get stuck in roles that after a while they just don't find rewarding. They're not really, passionate about it. They're not having that much fun at it, but they're afraid to make a bet on themselves and do something else and take a chance.
The clients you work with are a reflection of you. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think it's, actually it's one of our receptionists had pointed that out to me years ago, just on kind of fielding the incoming calls, and this was really pre voicemail even, right? So you'd come back and you'd get a stack of pink slips, and so our receptionist would be interacting with everybody's clients, and she just noticed that. She just said, my clients were the nicest people to deal with. And I think, over time, the, super analytical clients deal with the super analytical advisor, and the most socially networked, entertaining at night folks work with the most socially, involved people, and the hard asses work with the hard asses. So I really think over time, you can't fake it. and people hire people that they trust, that they like being around, and that they believe in. And I don't think you can fake that. If you're dealing with somebody who's very technically proficient, and over time they find out you're not technically proficient, I don't think that's a match that works long term. So that's what I mean by that.
And even to take that a step further and said differently, if we extrapolate that concept to anybody, if you are very self-aware and you find yourself constantly surrounded by really shitty people,
Yep.
that's a really good introspection point where you should be like, this is a mirror of potentially who I am.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond sales and beyond real estate. I found that an interesting point because I don't think we think about that.
And even and you can't fake it. It's like, listen, if you're if your client's a huge opera fan and you live for the NFL, over time it's going to be hard to continue to find the commonality of talking about things not just about business, right? And you can't really fake it, and you shouldn't fake it, right? I mean, you shouldn't fake it.
Yeah. That's a life lesson, man. That's not a sales lesson. That's a life lesson. Just be you. Be true to you.
To you, yeah.
One other one that I thought was interesting: finish as strong as you start. Obviously, everybody thinks that'll make sense, but what have you seen? We can talk about in a commercial real estate context, sales context, just as a good business individual or professional. Walk me through that concept.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a lesson I learned from a mentor of mine's wife, who was the headmaster of a private school where two of my kids went, and she was always like, finish strong. It's sometimes easy to, start things, get almost to the finish line and fade. You got to get through the finish line and be just as engaged at that point in time as when you were first even, pitching a project. So it's just so important. And it happens in real estate all the time, especially in commercial real estate, where, you get to like an MOU, or it's called a letter of intent in real estate, where you nail the business terms, and then you start negotiating the actual lease document. And there's a lot of people that just get it to the LOI, and then just kind of keep their fingers crossed that everything's going to work out and the two attorneys are going to work through the lease. That's not how we work. We provide extensive lease comments to the in-house counsel or outside counsel for our clients, and are on every lease negotiation call. You can fade early or you can stay on, and I think our clients really appreciate it. And once again, the Cushman resources, we have people in our organization that are attorneys and operating expense experts and measurement of properties experts and project management experts that dig into every detail of that lease. And that's how you separate yourself from the pack of dropping off before you even started talking about issues that'll cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over the course of a 15-year major lease.
Amazing. And then last one that I thought was interesting was always have clarity of purpose. What's that?
Well, that's really, I think it's really more like appreciating what our clients are doing, and it's really helping them with their success. And, how lucky are we to help somebody, to work with a Pfizer, right, who's bringing, the vaccine to the world.
Yeah.
To work with
Dana-Farber, not unknown name.
Right. I mean, and to work with a Dana-Farber that's helping to cure cancer and protecting their real estate interests, like every dollar that's spent on rent is your dollar. I think, just reminding our team the clarity of that purpose and what they're up to and how lucky we are, and how we can, in some small way, help them support their amazing missions that, make what we do, seem very, very insignificant.
It's very, especially the life sciences. You work with some
Yeah,
very interesting customers for sure.
totally.
Um, okay, so I want to do some rapid fire career questions that I finish these interviews off with. But before we pivot, last thoughts on commercial real estate, your career, and then uh, where do people reach out to you? Where do people find you if they want to get in touch, social media or otherwise?
Oh, sure. So, I mean, I think the commercial real estate industry is changing dramatically. I think, in our, I don't know what we say, COVID world, it's not pre or post. I think there's going to continue to be a lot of changes that every organization is going to go through, and we've got a deep team to help. Best way to get a hold of me would probably just be through email, robert.richards@cushwake.com, Cushwake. And, my mobile number is 617-943-3928. But always interesting in understanding challenges that organizations have and being able to help them out, or even helping younger folks with career decisions, which is tremendously rewarding at this stage of my career.
So now I know that you're a real salesperson because nobody's ever given out their phone number on this show before.
Well, we'll see. Yeah. Hey, bring it on.
Let's do it. All right, good, very good. Okay.
Call us a lot, right? I mean, this will be one of the few times anyone will call. We have to call them, right? So
that's true. That's very true.
it's the greatest opportunity.
All right.
That's the way to look at it.
I love it. Okay. A couple rapid fire. Biggest challenge you've had in your career. Which point was that, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I would say the biggest challenge was definitely transitioning from broadcasting into commercial real estate. I don't know how I overcame it, really, just with persistence and passion and intensity.
Good, very good. A mentor, a person. I know there's probably been many, but you have to pick one. Who was that? What did they teach you?
I would say probably that would be my sort of high school hockey coach, and ended up being the headmaster where two of my three sons went to school, and he just taught how to do things right and not take shortcuts. One thing I see a lot of people doing, and I counsel against it, is spending a lot of effort trying to figure out the easiest way to accomplish a task. And instead of figuring out the easiest angle and how I can shortcut this and that, just do the job and go through and get it done. And I think I learned a lot of that from Mr. Flood.
Very good. That's smart. That's good advice. What would be a resource that you'd recommend people check out? A book or a podcast that you maybe would recommend that's impacted you over your career? Anything in particular?
I can't really think of anything specifically. I just think it's staying in tune with kind of what's going on and having sort of broad interests. And I wouldn't get very segmented. I would be really open to, we always said, like when I would talk to the marketing folks at Richards Barry Joyce Partners, I would be like, listen, I don't want the best marketing materials in commercial real estate. I want the best marketing materials in industry. So what are the automotive folks doing? What's going on in insurance, investments? I think it's very important to have kind of a broad perspective as you're advising clients, because you just can't be, too segmented on one particular expertise.
What would be one thing that you would tell your 20-year-old self?
My 20-year-old self. Don't watch the 1987 World Series between the Red Sox and Mets. I think that would be my first, or the Patriots Giants Super Bowl game.
There's been a few.
Yeah, but I can't really think of once again, I don't really consider myself a risk taker. I remember talking to my dad about transitioning from broadcasting into real estate. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? And it's like, well, I'm going to help companies find, space they need to run their organizations. And he's like, well, what happens when they have all found the amount of space they need? I'm like, good question, Dad. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Or this is going to be a short career. But I would say, I would just embolden myself to continue to kind of take chances and really wanting to be a difference maker and wanting to know that you are giving your clients the best advice there is out there, right? I mean, right. Don't settle for anything less than being the best.
And last question, what does success mean to you?
Success means to me providing for my family, right? Giving them opportunities that we didn't have growing up. I think that's really what it means. I think success means helping others to become successful. So some lessons learned, like our talk today. How can you help pass it down to the next group of folks? Because helping somebody get it and change the opportunities they can provide their families is just amazingly rewarding.